Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. Psalm 45 is a psalm of love, and it reads very much like the Song of Solomon. And some suspect that maybe the king that's being spoken about in Psalm 45 is Solomon. However, we can also see it as allegorical and pointing to the ultimate king, that is Jesus Christ himself. And it starts off like this in verse 1. It says, "My heart overflows with a good theme. I address my verse to the king. My tongue is the pen of a ready writer." And the idea here is that the psalmist felt like a writer whose heart was filled with an idea, with a thought, with a good theme, and he's got his pen in hand ready to put on paper what was in his heart. And the psalmist says, my tongue was like that pen of the ready writer because of the abundance of my heart. That my heart overflows with a good theme. In other words, good thoughts towards this king that the psalmist was dedicated to. And as you go through and you read the psalm, you see why it would be that this psalmist would have a heart that overflows with this good theme. As he mentions the pleasantness of the king in verse 2, the gracious words of the king also in verse 2, the power of the king in verse 3, actually 3 through 5, the position of the king in verse 6, the character of the king in verse 7, and the splendor of the king in verse 8. All these things work together to cause this overflow of the heart, and therefore make this tongue of the psalmist like the pen of a ready writer, ready to express these wonderful things that he had experienced in connection to this king. And we could ask ourselves, are we like this psalmist? Do we have a heart that overflows with a good theme? As we consider Jesus Christ our King, is our tongue like the pen of a ready writer? And this will only be the case if our heart really and truly is filled with good thoughts, pleasant thoughts about Jesus. Because we too can reflect on Jesus and his pleasantness, his gracious words, his power, his position, his character, and his splendor. Christ has all these things going for him. And as we meditate on those and as we fill our hearts with those thoughts, our tongues too can be like the pen of a ready writer and ready to speak forth wonderful things and to glorify Christ in the words that we speak. Jesus himself said in Matthew chapter 12 and verse 34, the mouth speaks out of that which fills the heart. And that can be true of us as well. What is our hearts filled with? What are our hearts overflowing with? Hopefully it's overflowing with love for Christ, devotion to Christ, commitment to Christ. If our hearts are filled with all these wonderful things that we know about Christ, our tongues will be ready to speak forth things that glorify him and that bring praise to him. So let's consider our hearts today as we do our reading today, especially when we get to Psalm 45, and say, you know what, is my heart overflowing with a good theme? And is my tongue like the pen of a ready writer? Am I ready to speak forth beautiful things about Christ that comes from the overflow of the heart? Hopefully that's the case. So with that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. I hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.